Nerfs to Concoction skills are in. It was inevitable since the scaling with damage to bow skills on Quivers was definitely unintended. After the patch dropped, my sheet DPS dropped about 60k, and I've been able to make some changes to try and salvage some DPS. I bought a new Quiver for 1 Divine. You would be looking for a similar Quiver to the one I've got here, with implicit critical hit chance for attacks because the suffixes are quite crowded. You want to get plus to the level of projectile skills in the suffix, crit hit damage bonus for attacks, and plus to dexterity. So if you want the crit hit chance on your Quiver, you'd have to get it with the implicit mod. For the prefixes, projectile speed and accuracy is great. Projectile speed is great for quality of life, and accuracy is good too. I spent about 1 Divine on this Quiver. At the time of recording, similar Quivers were selling for about 3 to 5 Divines when I checked. That could just be because the market has shifted and people are looking for Quivers quite similar to this one after the old ones have become a little bit obsolete with the plus damage for bow skills. So hopefully the market does settle down in a few days and you are able to get one for a little bit cheaper. So I did make some changes to the build in order to try and salvage some DPS. There was a comment on my last video mentioning I could grab a Time Lost Diamond and some boots with freeze immunity, or freeze duration, reduced freeze duration with the Time Lost Diamond in order to get greater than 100% reduced duration of freeze on my character in order to save the Icebreaker skill points in this cluster here. And I was able to reinvest those skill points into this Jewel Socket and this cluster here with Staggering Palm for physical damage and crit damage bonus. With that being said though, it was nearly 2 Divines in order to do that. The boots were about 50 exalts and the jewel was about 120 or 130 exalts, so a bit under 2 Divines. If you don't have that extra currency, you could just stick with what I had in my original guide, grabbing Icebreaker and this no cluster here for freeze immunity, or using the freeze charm and getting asceticism here for stun threshold if you prefer to use a freezing charm instead of a stun charm. Mapping feels nearly identical. Our damage was way overkill before, but now actually for my character it does feel a little bit better because of the projectile speed on the Quiver. It's really sped up the animations and increased the fluidity of the build. Additionally, with the buffs to the Smiling Knight Helm, it now has 200% capped increased armor to evasion, where previously it was only 50%. I was able to roll Corrupt Spirit onto the helm, so I'm able to run Herald of Ash with Alchemist Boon at the same time. Mapping feels faster than it did before despite the nerfs, and that's just from some changes and quick optimizations that have been made. Concoction spells in particular, well, I think Freezing Concoction does a pretty good job at mapping, but the other ones from what I've seen are a little bit slower. They don't seem to be excelling at mapping. They hold their own, but they're not a one button clears the whole screen sort of build, and that's still the case, but still holds its own after the nerfs. Definitely still tanky, pretty much never die in maps, and still really satisfying and fluid gameplay. For boss DPS, that's where we noticed the nerfs the most. I went and redid Zarohk, and I fought the Trialmaster again. Despite having less DPS, because I knew the fight a bit better, the fights went even faster than I did on my first attempts. And I was able to fight Xesht +2 now, and that was pretty cruisy as well. Still have plenty of boss DPS despite the nerfs. I'll leave the clips of those boss fights playing in the background. If you guys enjoy these updates and want to see any more builds, please hit subscribe and, leave some comments with what you'd like to see next. I'm still planning on doing an SSF run, so let me know what class you'd like to see. Thank you. See you guys later.